to see you back in with the part 2 video, continuation from yesterday's video. So yeah, like I was talking about, essentially being homeless, which is pretty much in different ways, right? It's not one standard definition of being homeless, right? A person can have a car and live in that car, or maybe a van, right, or a truck, and they'll be considered homeless, right? So that's one form of it, you know, not having a standard traditional apartment or a house that has access to, you know, water services. And so that's one aspect of being homeless. Another aspect of being homeless is not having a vehicle or a van, which, you know, another form of that would be like an RV. So lacking that, the person would either be what they call couch surfing, usually jumping from a person that they know, whether that's a friend or a relative, sleeping at their, you know, home or their couch, or it would be either staying in a shelter, right? That's one way. Another way would be considered sleeping on the ground, right? Whether that's concrete or whether that's grass and land. And so there's a few different definitions of being homeless, but essentially, you know, that in and of itself can be very detrimental and taxing on a man's mentality because of what he's had to endure during that time. Now, some men have been homeless, you know, for more than others, some for years rather than months, and having to go through that state is difficult. But like I mentioned in the previous video, it also builds up an endurance and a thick skin, because, you know, there's levels to it, right? There's different levels to it, and not every man's circumstance within that state of homelessness is his own, right? Also, some men end up working as well compared to other men who don't. And so the state that I was in, I was completely flat out, you know, no income, no money whatsoever, and also nowhere to call home. And so I didn't have nothing, period. All I had was time and potential. And, you know, having patience, you know, I always thank the Most High for patience, and I think it's important for particular men of righteousness, or men who diligently seek the favor of the Most High on a daily basis. It's important for these men to really have patience within whatever process of struggle that they're going in, because inevitably it doesn't last forever, but you don't know when it's actually going to be over for you. And so all you can really do is make the best of your time. That's really all we can do. And so staying productive, you know, is important. Not being overproductive, not doing too much to exhaust oneself, you know, that's key as well, especially when you're on this path, which is the path, I would say, of celibacy to make your body to cleanse your body. Essentially, that's what it boils down to. Your celibate and you're abstaining from sexual immorality in order to truly cherish this temple, this body that God has given you, and to really make the best use of it outside of doing things that the modern world pushes and propagates to the masses, right, to indulge in, and so it's super important for men to realize this, right, and like it's been mentioned in, several years and by so many people within this space, majority of men in the world have succumbed to lust and have succumbed to the act of masturbation, self-pleasuring oneself, which is not what a man has been created to do. No, a man hasn't been created to do that, right? And in fact, if you go back to, I believe it's in the book of Exodus, if you go back to the scriptures, you'll see that, I think it was one of the sons of Israel, one of Jacob's sons, it was probably Judah, and Judah had a few sons as well. I think he had 2 sons, and in particular, the story goes, one son ended up losing his life for whatever reason, I can't remember, but he lost his life, and his brother's name was Onan, and Onan was instructed by God to go into his brother's wife in order to bear a seed in her, in order to keep up the family lineage, and Onan disobeyed that command, and he ended up spilling his seed outside of her womb, and consequently for that, he was removed. He was put to death. And so, even though that this, scripture may be very ancient in itself, right? Because we're talking about Israel, we're talking about the sons of Israel, the tribes of Israel. So you're talking about the ancient world, right? You're talking about thousands of years in the BC era. And one could make the argument that times have changed drastically from that. But then again, there are certain things within this modern world that still carry on. And I find it interesting how if you research on the topic of masturbation, you find out that prior to this practice being called masturbation, it was called onanism. And the prefix of onanism is Onan. And Onan, like I mentioned, a few minutes ago, Onan was one of Judah's sons who lost his life due to disobeying a command that came from God. And so, this practice and this discipline is something that is supposed to be done really without thought. This is just how it's supposed to be, because a man isn't supposed to engage in so much of these acts, even though the modern world pushes it, right, through so many forms of media, and everything essentially targets the man in order to make him indulge in this act. And so there's no, it might be pleasurable, it might be a good feeling that the man has after he orgasms, but inevitably he's at a loss, because nothing came about from that seed. The seed was wasted, and it was not used in order to strengthen his body, or it wasn't used to go into the body or the womb of a woman for her to procreate with, and for them to have a particular exchange, a reciprocal exchange of energies that benefits both them, the man and the woman. So, go figure on that one. But yeah, this the homelessness thing it's real, and it's boy, with the way that the state of the world is in, particularly in America, it's hard on a lot of people, and a lot of people have been, losing their homes. And I've been on this timeout period for the bulk of this year, the majority of this year, and I've come out of this state, but it was definitely a test, right? And sometimes in life you'll find that God will test you in order to see if you're ready to get to the next level and to actually be the person that you're supposed to be and the man that you're supposed to be. And like I said, homelessness is multifaceted. It's not just a one-all, be-all definition, and there's also varying degrees of it. But as far as it pertains to the people in the U.S., irrespective of color, it hits everybody the same. But it's the man who is able to utilize that state and essentially understand it and be able to overcome it by using his own life force essence and energy on a day in and a day out basis. Anyway, this is the end of the video, and I'll be uploading some more content for you guys. This is easy to see you, and like I said, have a good one. Over and out.